We're introduced to a girl named Akane Nishino, a famous actress who wakes up alone in a trophy-filled apartment and immediately looks miserable about it. She gets ready for school but freezes at the front door as a flashback of aggressive reporters swarms her mind. At school, everyone greets her warmly and she sparkles right back, but the second the crowd thins, her expression drops. She spots a boy and narrates that there was a boy she despised. His grades, just below average. His athletics, just below average. His looks, exceedingly ordinary. She greets him and he calls her Nishimura, wrong name. She tells him they've sat next to each other for 3 months, and this dumb, useless idiot calls her Nishitani, also wrong. She tells him her name is Nishino Akane. He turns to leave and calls her Nishimura again. What really bothers her isn't the name thing. His eyes always stared right through her. Friends crowd Akane's desk about her lead role in a drama. A teacher assigns Kageno to tally the festival survey. Meanwhile, this nobody sits alone squeezing a hand strengthener, counting to 20,000. In the restroom, Akane stares at her reflection. A stalker scandal forced her out of show business, and ever since she's been hiding behind a mask. Kageno sits behind a fence reading a book that shifts from nuclear energy diagrams to magic circles. He mutters, "More power." After school, Akane tries calling her driver. No answer. Meanwhile, a blonde thug pins her chauffeur against a car, and sweet red juice splatters the pavement. Akane walks home alone. A massive man with glowing red eyes blocks her path. She runs, but an SUV cuts her off, and a blonde man presses chloroform over her mouth. From a narrow opening, Kageno watches. Akane wakes up tied and gagged in a warehouse. The blonde kidnapper tells her the Nishino conglomerate head's daughter shouldn't be wandering alone. His partner says they've sent the ransom, but the blonde laughs because that's just the cover story. He grabs her chin and tells her no one's coming to save her. A figure crashes through the skylight in a balaclava and goggles. "I'm just a stylish ruffian slayer." He throws a crowbar into the blonde's face and beats him to the floor. The mercenary pulls a knife, but the masked figure overpowers him, driving a crowbar into his shoulder. The mercenary recognizes him as the balaclava berserker, a lunatic who spent his nights beating up biker gangs. He leaves both men covered in sweet red juice, walks toward Akane with a butterfly knife, raises it, she flinches, and the blade cuts her ropes. Be more careful walking home next time. On the upper level, he pulls off the balaclava. It's Kageno, bloodied and frustrated. This man just beat 2 grown criminals half to death with crowbars and he's mad about it. Police arrive. Akane's father pulls strings, and the whole thing stays under wraps. The next morning, Akane greets Kageno, and he says, "Good morning, Nishino." She starts to correct him, then stops. This time he got it right. A news report plays. Kageno Minoru lost his life in a truck accident that morning. In a dark void, the boy stands before glowing screens. As far back as he can remember, he wanted to be something beyond human. He mastered every skill while playing the harmless nobody at school. But if a nuclear bomb hits, all he can do is evaporate. Compromise is not an option. He was blessed with a new life in a new world and given magic. Now he stands atop a clock tower with 7 beautiful women behind him, like he's assembling the Avengers. He smirks and says, "Excellent," then admits to himself he has absolutely no idea what's going on. Blue magic crackles from his hand and he leaps from the tower. He doesn't want to be the hero. He doesn't want to be the final boss. He will become the eminence in shadow. Alpha tells Sid the ancient texts confirm everything he said about the cult of Diablos. He declares, "We lurk in the shadows and hunt the shadows," and walks away thinking this elf is a total pushover. A news report identifies Kageno Minoru as dead from a truck accident. This brain-dead Chunabu loser got flattened because he was too busy cosplaying as a Shadow Lord. He opens his eyes as a newborn in a fantasy world. His father panics because the baby isn't crying, but Sid forces a wail. The air is thick with magical energy, and this power-hungry gremlin intends to claim it all. He was reborn into the Kagenu family, minor aristocrats who produce dark knights. His sister Claire shatters boulders in training, while Sid pokes his rock with a stick like some talentless waste of a family name. He grows up as background character A, but trains at night. He raids a bandit hideout with a black slime sword. A Bushin-style swordsman slashes his chest, but Sid grins. Just kidding. The slime absorbs the blow and kills the man in 2 minutes. Among the loot, he finds a cage holding a grotesque purple blob, magical overload. He spends a month pumping it full of his thick magical essence. I mean injecting it with controlled magic. The blob transforms into a naked blonde elf girl. Sid tells her he lifted her curse and names the cult of Diablos as the mastermind. He declares himself Shadow. She pledges her life. Internally, he admits he made the whole thing up. This scheming con artist invented a global conspiracy, and she swallowed every syllable. He names the organization Shadow Garden and calls her Alpha. 3 years pass. Claire spars with Sid by a river and sends him flying, calling his lunge weak. A maid calls Claire for her farewell party. Claire is enrolled at Midgar Academy, but on departure day, her room is ransacked and she's gone. The father screams at his men like the spineless, bald embarrassment that he is. Sid slips away with a maid and calls her Beta, a silver-haired elf with glasses. Alpha collected members like Pokemon. Beta says the kidnapper is a cult officer who suspects Claire is a hero's descendant. Beta shows Sid a map of hideouts. Sid throws a knife. It lands on a blank spot. He mutters, "Damn, I missed," and says that's where Claire is. Beta realizes the marked spots were decoys. Sid thinks she could win Grammys with that acting. He orders the Seven Shades to move tonight. Claire is chained in a dungeon. Viscount Grease kicks at her, but she dodges, restrained. Grease asks if Sid healed her possession. She denies it. She rips her hands free of the shackles and lunges at him, threatening to kill everyone he knows. A soldier bursts in. Intruders. Shadow Garden tears through the hideout. Alpha tells Grease they know everything. The revival, the descendants, the possession, all of which their boss pulled straight out of his backside. Grease swallows red pills, transforms into a monster, and smashes through the floor. Sid is lost in the corridors after butchering Small Fry. Grease stumbles through a secret door. Sid dominates the fight, lecturing him on footwork and telling him his lunge is weak. Grease transforms into a hulking monster. Sid blocks his sword. Disgraceful. A colossal pillar of purple energy overwhelms Grease. In his final moments, he remembers his daughter Milia. Sid picks up the fallen locket, drops it on the body, and walks away calling him a tough bandit. This absolute donkey just obliterated a cult officer and filed it under bandit encounter. Claire breaks out on her own and returns home the next day. She leaves for the capital as if nothing happened. Sid watches her go sipping tea. On the balcony at sunset, the 7 members of Shadow Garden stand before him. Alpha says it's time to leave. This is goodbye. Sid is caught off guard. Sid rides a train to the royal capital. Alpha and the girls told him the cult of Diablos operates on a global scale, and they scattered to fight it. This brain-dead moron concluded the exact opposite. He assumes they realized his made-up cult is fiction and left to start their own lives. He drifts off and flashes back to his previous life, bleeding and barefoot in a forest, howling about magic like a feral animal until he stumbled into traffic and got flattened. He wakes up grinning. Even alone, he'll keep pursuing the eminence in shadow. The capital has over 1 million people. Sid enrolls at Midgar Academy for dark nights where his sister attends. Rich kids live on campus while broke nobodies like Sid commute from a garbage downtown apartment. He befriends Skell and Poe, 2 equally worthless guys with the presence of furniture. 7 months in, Sid scored worst on a test, and the penalty is confessing to the most popular girl in school. He's thrilled because it's the perfect forgettable loser moment. The target is Princess Alexia. Long white hair, red eyes, looks like a Margot Robbie movie come to life. He watches another student confess with roses and get obliterated. At sunset, Sid delivers the most pathetic stammering confession in history, while Skell and Poe spy from the bushes like 2 useless little rats. To his horror, Alexia accepts. This stupid, idiotic nobody just tripped face first into the main character plotline. Next day at lunch, the school is whispering. Alexia sits at Sid's table, and Skell and Poe can barely form words in the presence of an actual woman. Sid tries to get dumped by stuffing his face with her food, but she transfers him into Section 1 fencing instead. Escape plan dead on arrival. In Section 1, advisor Mr. Zenon runs sparring. Sid notices Alexia's fencing is technically flawless but bland. Rigid basics, zero excess, hyper-aware. The world calls her the fencer ordinaire, far inferior to her genius sister Iris. But Sid sees her blandness for what it is: enormous effort. After the lesson, Alexia tells Zenon she's Sid's girlfriend. Zenon claims they're betrothed, but Alexia corrects him. Candidate, not fiancé. Sid overhears and puts it together. Alexia admits she picked a bottom-tier nobody as a fake boyfriend to block Zenon. She already broke Skell and Poe. Those pathetic, gutless cowards folded instantly, and blackmails Sid into the act. He agrees after she tosses him a gold coin and he snatches it with his teeth. Alexia is composed in public but tears him apart in private, and Sid becomes a yes-man with the personality of a brick wall. 2 weeks pass with nothing. On the tram, Alexia says she can't figure out Sid's fencing, nothing but basics, yet she can't look away. She confides that she spent her whole life trying to match Iris but never had the talent. building her style alone. Sid tells her he likes her fencing. Iris said the same after a humiliating defeat at the Bushin Festival, and Alexia hated it because Iris could never understand. Sid says he's not a great person. A million deaths wouldn't bother him, but things others see as worthless matter everything to him, and he gets pissed off when people diss them. Alexia draws her sword. He says it's nothing. She sheaths it and steps off. Next morning, Skell and Poe pester Sid about how far he got with Alexia. He says nowhere, and they call him a good-for-nothing loser. A group of senior students in blue capes surrounds them. Alexia didn't return to her dorm last night. The Night Order is investigating a kidnapping, and Sid, the last person to have contact with her, is named as a suspect. Alexia wakes up chained to a medical table in a dark cell with magic ceiling shackles. Glowing blue orbs fill jars along the walls, and a monstrous white-haired figure crouches in the corner. Some unhinged lab coat freak shuffles over mumbling about royal blood like he's reading his own manifesto, draws her blood, and rambles about using it to resurrect a demon. The scientist keeps draining her day after day, ranting about his destroyed laboratory, shattering a syringe in his own hand mid-freakout. Alexia stays calm, even sympathizing with this pathetic, twitching lunatic. He feeds her slop so he can keep juicing her like a fruit stand. Meanwhile, Sid is getting the tar beaten out of him in an interrogation room. Two knights stab him with metal claws demanding a confession. This brain-dead delusional clown is having the time of his life because getting tortured as a wrongly accused nobody is his idea of a perfect Tuesday. Princess Iris meets with Marquis Zenon. After 5 days, the idiot has given them nothing, so she releases him but keeps him monitored. Zenon offers help, and Iris asks him to maintain order at the academy, not knowing she just handed security to the man behind the whole operation. Claire goes feral at the school, trying to break out of lockdown to save her useless lump of a brother. A blonde girl wrestles her to detention. Iris watches from her window, reflecting on how distant she and Alexia have become. Alexia's condition has worsened, body covered in puncture marks, face dirty and bruised. Sid gets released. He notices a man watching him on the train, and a cloaked figure whispers to him on the street. He returns to his apartment and finds Alpha waiting. The cult of Diablos kidnapped Alexia for her royal blood, and they've infiltrated the Night Order. Alpha confirms Alexia is alive. If she dies, they can't extract any more of her juices. Any more blood. She questions why he was cultivating a relationship with the princess, but Sid denies everything like the emotionally illiterate moron that he is. She tells him to lie low, slides into her tight black bodysuit, and leaves through the balcony. That night, Sid sets up his hideout with expensive wine and antique furniture, like a Bond villain decorating his first apartment. A girl with light blue hair briefs him. Shadow Garden has 114 members ready to strike all Fenrir sect hideouts simultaneously. CID says he'll play the opening act himself. The two knights find Sid in an alley holding Alexia's boot with her magic on it. They announce his arrest, but Shadow Garden has already killed the lookouts. Sid transforms into Shadow and cuts both knights down. Shadow Garden launches the attack. Buildings explode and cult members get slaughtered across the city. A silver-haired elf girl tails Shadow through the streets, scribbling in her notebook like the obsessive little fangirl that she is. The Night Order scrambles. Iris identifies 8 attack locations and heads to the front lines herself. In the dungeon, the scientist panics and injects his prototype serum into the white-haired figure. Alexia warns him, but this sniveling, cowardly weasel does it anyway. The creature transforms into a massive beast, slashes Alexia's chains free, and smashes onto the street. Alexia pulls herself from the rubble, grabs a sword, and fights through the corridors where she runs into Zenon. He reveals he funded the research to earn a seat among the Knights of the Rounds, and says Iris would have been a better offering, but he'll settle for Alexia. Zenon overpowers her, dismisses her as a fencer ordinaire, and knocks her into the flooded floor. Footsteps echo through the corridor. A figure in a black coat walks toward them. Alexia looks up in shock. It's Shadow, the one who lurks in the shadows to hunt the shadows. Shadow faces Zenon in the underground corridor. Zenon calls him a stray dog and boasts about being a future Knight of the Rounds like anybody asked for his LinkedIn profile. He swings his sword, but Shadow deflects it without shifting his weight. Shadow asks where the so-called core member is. Meanwhile, on the surface, the monster rampages through the city. Soldiers and Dark Knights attack, but every wound regenerates instantly. Iris slashes its legs off with a red energy strike, but they grow right back. Alpha drops in looking like Margot Robbie in a catsuit and tells Iris she's only making her suffer. She dives toward the monster and kills it with a single blue strike that sends a pillar of light into the sky. Alpha picks up a gold locket from the ground. Shadow appears in the fog, tells Iris to stay out of their way, and vanishes. Back underground, Zenon powers up with a red aura, but Shadow blocks every strike and gets behind him like he's playing with a toddler holding a foam sword. He knocks Zenon down. Alexia watches and notes Shadow's technique is transcendent but ordinary at its core. It reminds her of the swordsmanship she dreamed about as a child. She never had Iris's talent, built her style through repetition, and got mocked as the fencer ordinaire. Watching Shadow, she recognizes the same accumulation of basics she once dreamed of, elevated into something transcendent. Zenon pulls out red pills and swallows them all like a desperate bodybuilder raiding the supplement aisle. He transforms into a hulking, red-marked figure calling himself the Third Awakened. He attacks with massive power, but Shadow blocks everything. Shadow tells him there's no power in borrowed strength and crushes the pill vial under his boot. He charges purple energy through his body and tells a story about a man who wanted to survive a nuclear explosion. The answer was to become nuclear himself. He declares he is atomic. He raises his sword and unleashes a colossal purple energy blast that erupts through the ground into the sky. The explosion creates a massive crater in the city center. Everyone across the capital sees the purple light. Alexia survives in a cave beneath the crater, picks up a sword, and starts practicing with new determination. Iris finds her, and they embrace. The next day at school, Alexia tells Sid the case is publicly closed. She stops him and thanks him for once telling her he liked her fencing style. She says she's finally learned to appreciate her own style, then adds it wasn't because of him. Sid tells her she could have left that last part out. Then Alexia brings up their fake relationship, and since Zenon conveniently got himself killed, she nervously asks if he'd be interested in keeping the relationship going for real. I mean, keeping the fake relationship going a little longer. This brain-dead, oblivious, pathetic little worm gives her a cheerful thumbs up and says no. Alexia smiles. Later, massive amounts of blood are found behind the school, but no body. It becomes one of the school's 7 mysteries. The bodiless murder. Shadow Garden holds a meeting. Alpha reports Zenon was vaporized and the facility destroyed, shares updates on Zeta's recon and Ida's research, then raises a new issue. Someone is committing crimes under the Shadow Garden name. Iris forms a new investigation team to look into the cult's infiltration of the Night Order. She opens a box with a silver cross artifact and a red gem and says they need someone to decipher it. A girl with pink hair walks across campus reading ancient text. Sid bumps into her and knocks her books everywhere. He offers his hand. She looks up and sees him covered in blood, staring down at her calmly. A hooded figure kills a man in an alley and leaves behind a skull emblem paper, declaring themselves Shadow Garden. At school, Skell and Poe pester Sid about his breakup with Alexia. Skell mentions a store called Mitsugoshi that sells things nobody has ever seen before, like chocolate, and Sid agrees to go. Meanwhile, Iris asks Sherry Barnett, a pink-haired student known as the kingdom's most brilliant mind, to decipher the Silver Cross artifact recovered from the cult. Her father encourages her to take the job. Iris assigns her Crimson Order to protect Sherry, and Alexia volunteers to help, but is told to stay out of danger. The 3 boys visit Mitsugoshi, where the line is 80 minutes long. A brown-haired girl pulls Sid aside for a survey and leads him inside alone. The place has chocolate, coffee, and modern fashion. He's brought to a grand hall where elf-eared girls bow as he enters, and at the end of a red carpet stands Gamma, one of the 7 shades. Sid realizes Gamma took the random things he shared and turned them into a real business. She trips coming down the stairs and gets a nosebleed. This woman built a billion-dollar company, but can't walk downstairs without almost dying. Sid sits on a throne and loves it, then rewards Gamma with a burst of purple magic that fills the hall, moving her to tears. Gamma reveals Mitsugoshi has roughly a billion zeni at its disposal, and this greedy, delusional little weasel is losing his mind on the inside over money he had nothing to do with earning. Gamma brings up the fake Shadow Garden killers in the capital. Sid says he has an idea who it is. She introduces Nu, the newest of the numbers, and gives him premium chocolate for free. That night, Sid ditches Skell and Poe by faking a bathroom emergency. He suspects Alexia is the killer using the Shadow Garden name. This brain-dead, oblivious fool just profiled his ex as a serial murderer because she has attitude problems. He tracks her down in an alley where she's fighting the fakes, outnumbered and wounded. Sid arrives as Shadow and cuts down the imposters, declaring they'll pay for using his name. The remaining fakes flee. Alexia asks what he's fighting for, but he tells her to stay out of it and walks away. Shadow catches the fleeing imposters on a rooftop. Nu appears and finishes them off, saying she's not as forgiving as Lord Shadow. The fake Shadow Garden's handlers learn their agents were killed. The Gaunt Knight says it doesn't matter. They've already located the item they're after. Alexia tells Iris that Shadow confirmed the killer wasn't from the real Shadow Garden. Iris recalls meeting Alpha during the attacks and notes Shadow Garden has enormous combat power, but nothing else is known. Alexia asks who the real enemy is. Iris answers both. She won't allow anyone to disrupt her kingdom's peace. Back at school, Skell tries to give chocolate to an upper-class woman, but her betrothed drags him away. The girl keeps the chocolate. Skell got played and robbed in the same 30 seconds. The pathetic, hopeless little clown. In the library, Poe reveals he's been researching a girl's every detail to avoid Skell's mistake. This obsessive stalker freak compiled a whole dossier on some girl like he's the FBI. He approaches her and she calls him a stalker. Sid gives his leftover chocolate to Sherry, who is studying nearby. Her father tells her the chocolate was meant as a love confession, and Sherry blushes, remembering the first time she saw Sid covered in blood. Her father asks about the deciphering, and tells her to also learn to interact with others. He starts coughing, but insists he's fine, pats her head and says he's lucky to have such a good daughter. Sherry says she's grateful he adopted her. He mentions her mother was an excellent researcher and tells her to do her best. The artifact's red gem pulses with light. Sherry sits at her desk examining chocolates. Her father calls it love at first sight. She takes a bite and savors the sweetness. At school, Sid walks through campus examining a paper with runic symbols. Nu appears in a borrowed student uniform. On a park bench, she reports that the man in black they captured had his mind destroyed by brainwashing, a hallmark of the cult's third children. She couldn't extract anything. Skell snatches the paper. It's a Bushin festival flyer. These two useless crippled idiots entered Sid's name without asking. Sid refuses and fakes a stomachache. Back on the bench, Nu explains the cult kidnaps orphans and poor children, brainwashes them into soldiers, and is using Shadow Garden's name as bait. A named first child called Rex has been spotted in the capital. Sid dismisses it, but shifts into a cryptic monologue about having 24 and wanting twice that, then walks off. Nu calls it the wisdom of the shadows. Nu pauses in the cafe, watching students live normal lives. She flashes back to a ballroom memory before darkness consumed it. Claire wins her preliminary match. The crowd buzzes about whether she can beat Rose Oriana. Outside the stadium, Skell bet everything on the first match and lost. This dumb broke loser will be eating bread crusts for the month. The announcer introduces Rose Oriana against an unknown opponent. Rose is the best swordswoman in the academy. Sid is grateful nobody is cheering for him and vows to unveil 48 background character techniques. The match begins and Rose demolishes him. Blood splatters. He crashes headfirst into the arena and names it background character secret technique, spinning drill fall, bloody tornado. The referee tries to call it, but this delusional, self-destructive lunatic drags himself up screaming, "Not yet!" every time. Rose charges her full power, but another boy tackles Sid before she lands it. Rose reflects that she won the fight but lost the battle of spirits. Sid walks through campus wrapped in bandages. Sherry stops him, says she watched his match, and gives him homemade cookies. This thick-skulled, oblivious moron genuinely thinks she appreciated his background character moves. They sit at a cafe, and Sherry asks to be friends. Her father, Lutheran Barnett, assistant principal and Bushin Festival champion, is at a nearby table. Sid recognizes him as someone to never interact with. Lutheran asks Sid to be good to Sherry. Sid can't refuse to their faces, so this lying, conniving little snake plans to fake being bedridden. The crowd is confused about a favorite forfeiting because of a horoscope. Sherry eats chocolate at her desk and considers checking on Sid. She flashes back to giving him cookies and to a boy with a white-haired girl in a library. At Alexia's residence, Sherry asks if she was involved with Sid. Alexia says they were never really dating. Sherry is overjoyed and mentions she became friends with him. Alexia grips her teacup so hard the handle snaps off and coffee spills everywhere. Another girl tripping over herself for this worthless, invisible nobody, and Alexia is one bad day away from committing a felony. Sherry doesn't notice. In a dark tunnel, an armored figure with 4 red eyes activates a red orb. Above ground, a massive dome engulfs the campus, turning the sky red and purple. Alexia arrives at the school to find the gates sealed and sees blood and a motionless hand through a window. Inside, Sid's magic won't work. The wall explodes, and masked figures announce themselves as Shadow Garden, taking over the academy. Rose confronts them, but without magic, her sword shatters against a dark knight's blade. Sid leaps between the desks and pushes Rose out of the way. The masked figure slashes him across the chest. Blood erupts and Sid collapses in a massive pool of blood. The Gaunt Knight's rainbow barrier covers the academy and seals everyone's magic. Fake Shadow Garden members storm the classrooms and take over the school. Rose tries to fight back, but her magic fails. Sid leaps in front of her and takes a sword slash across the chest. He collapses in a pool of blood. Rose cradles his head and cries, and is led away at sword point. The students are herded into the auditorium as hostages. Once everyone leaves, this conniving, two-faced little cockroach gets back up. He used his background character secret technique, 10-minute death, heartbreak, stopping his own heartbeat and keeping his brain alive with magic. This absolute fraud made a girl sob over his bleeding body, and he was faking the whole thing. His magic is mostly sealed, but he can shape it into narrow threads that slip past the barrier. He puts his jacket back on and heads to the roof. The hostages are in the auditorium. The Night Order has surrounded the school but won't advance without magic, and Alexia is outside the barrier with her arm in a sling. From the roof, he snipes patrolling guards with slime projectiles, picking them off while waiting for nightfall. He spots Sherry sneaking through the halls with the cross artifact and silently takes out every cult member tailing her. Meanwhile, Rex, the game of betrayal, crashes through Sherry's study window after the cross artifact. Glenn, the Lion's Mane, vice commander of the Crimson Order, blocks Rex's attack while Marco tells Sherry to run. Glenn fights Rex. Marco holds off a cult member, and Sherry escapes with the artifact toward her father's office. Sherry finds a book describing the Eye of Avarice. It absorbs magical energy from everyone in range and will eventually release it all in one massive blast, enough to blow the school sky high. The cross artifact is the control unit that can shut it down. Sid sits in a nearby armchair like he owns the place, while Sherry explains that the eye can be programmed to ignore specific frequencies, and that trace is too subtle or spells too powerful for it slip through. Sherry plans to activate the control artifact and reach the auditorium through hidden basement tunnels. She needs tools from her study to finish fine-tuning it, so Sid volunteers to fetch them. Rex reports to the Gaunt Knight in the auditorium. The Gaunt Knight holds the Eye of Avarice and says, retrieving the control artifact and earning reinstatement in the Knights of the Rounds is all that matters. This pathetic, washed-up loser is holding an entire school hostage for a promotion. Rex mentions someone has been taking out their men, both thirds and 2 seconds. The Gaunt Knight suspects Shadow Garden. Rex heads out with 2 escorts to find Sherry, but Sid ambushes them, knocking out the escorts and sending Rex flying. Rex deploys a magic detection net and taunts Sid about being wounded, but Sid punches him straight through it. Rex stumbles into a classroom full of dead cult members slumped over desks. Sid appears hanging upside down from above, tells Rex he was great, and the screen cuts to black. Nu has infiltrated the school and found Glenn dead. She closes his eyes, then encounters Sid. She reports that Shadow Garden forces are in position. Gamma has general command but 0 combat sense, and Nu herself can only draw half her usual power under the restriction. Nu helps Sid gather the supplies Sherry needs: mithril tweezers, powdered bone of earth dragon, ashen magicite. Sid tells her the artifact will be finished by sundown, so Nu says they'll launch their attack then. She spares the injured Marco on her way out. Sherry works on activating the artifact as sunset approaches, whispering a plea to her father. Outside the barrier, the Night Order argues about how to breach the academy like a bunch of headless chickens in armor. Inside the auditorium, the Gaunt Knight patrols while Rose sits among the helpless hostages. In a back room, Sherry finishes activating the cross artifact with Sid's help. They find a hidden passage behind a bookshelf and head into the tunnels. Sid, the two-faced, lying little fraud that he is, says there's nothing left for him to do and tells her to go save the world. Back in the auditorium, Rose warns the students not to try anything. The Gaunt Knight's magical energy is in another league. In the tunnels, Sherry presses onward alone. The cult's snipers shoot students from the balcony, laughing like the pathetic, cowardly scumbags they are. Rose grits her teeth but can do nothing. Sherry reaches the balcony, activates her cross artifact, and throws it toward the Eye of Avarice. A pillar of light erupts, the red dome shatters, and magic floods back. Rose grabs a sword, rallies the students, and they overpower the cult members. Rose charges the Gaunt Knight, knowing her magic won't last. The glass ceiling shatters. Shadow Garden crashes in. Shadow lands in the hall, blows the cultists back, and declares, "We are Shadow Garden. We lurk in the shadows to hunt the shadows." His operatives tear through the enemies while Rose orders the students to evacuate. Fire erupts across the building. Rose leads the students through the blaze. The Gaunt Knight turns a gas valve, and the building explodes behind him. Outside, Iris takes charge of the survivors and demands to know who Shadow Garden really is. On the rooftop, Gamma confirms all necessary articles are retrieved. Sherry searches the burning corridors for her father, calling out in desperation. In a separate room, the gaunt knight burns books with a lighter. Sid sits on the window ledge calmly reading, while the building burns around him like the unhinged psychopath he is. He casually identifies the gaunt knight as Assistant Principal Lutheran Barnett. Lutheran removes his helmet, shocked. Lutheran spills his tragic backstory, won the Bushin Festival, lost everything to disease, funded Sherry's mother's research for a cure. When her mother wanted to hand the Eye of Avarice to the government, Lutheran murdered her, extremities to core, then through the heart. Sherry inherited the research, never knowing her adoptive father was the killer. Sid asks if he truly used Sherry. Lutheran confirms it without remorse. They draw swords and clash. Lutheran thinks he's won, then turns and finds Shadow standing in the flames. Lutheran merges the Eye of Avarice into his body. Power surges beyond human limits. Shadow's strikes slash him apart. Lutheran screams he's framed Shadow Garden and the world will hunt them. Shadow laughs. They walk neither righteousness nor evil, only their own path. If the world gathers every sin against them, they'll welcome it all. Shadow cuts him apart the same way he killed Sherry's mother and drives his blade through the Eye of Avarice. The artifact shatters. Lutheran collapses dead. Sherry stands in the doorway. She screams for her father. Shadow tells her she's better off not knowing and vanishes into the night. Alpha holds Shadow's wanted poster, mass murder, kidnapping, arson, robbery, and reads the charges with amusement. Gamma quotes his words about accepting the world's sins. Alpha orders the Seven Shades to assemble. At the ruined campus, Sherry tells Sid she's leaving to study abroad in Laugus. There's something she needs to do. Sid wishes her luck. As her carriage pulls away, he asks what she needs to do. She smiles. It's a secret. As the carriage rolls off, Sherry silently vows to see her goal through. With the academy half destroyed, summer break starts early. Sid lounges on a balcony until a pigeon arrives carrying a letter from Alpha. It speaks of settling old accounts and the final resting place of ancient memories, the sacred land of Lindworm. Meanwhile, Shadow Garden's members go about their routines. Epsilon uses Sid's slime bodysuit to reshape herself each morning, stuffing on extra padding like she's prepping for a Sydney Sweeney audition. Beta and Epsilon greet each other and immediately start bickering over who Shadow has been looking at more. A third member joins in, comparing bus sizes, because that's apparently how military briefings work in Shadow Garden. Nu arrives with a directive from Alpha, and the group prepares to move. Alexia drags Iris to the Mitsugoshi department store for the goddess's trial trip to the sacred land. Iris reminds her to stay focused, but Alexia plans to use her princess cover to investigate corruption and missing orphans. The store's president Luna greets them. Alexia convinces Iris to let her buy thongs after an argument in the dressing room, because apparently national security can wait until after underwear shopping. Rose rushes through the aftermath of a fire at the arena and finds Sid in the infirmary, wrapped head to toe in bandages. She weeps with relief, clasps his hand, and gives him her heart. Sid's only response is to mutter that he's dead. This miserable, oblivious worm just had a girl pour her soul out to him, and he played corpse. Rose insists they travel to the sacred land by train. Over 2 days, she clings to his arm, talks about their future, and tries to convert him to the divine teachings, going on about the goddess Beatrix and heroes who married princesses. Sid dismisses it all as a typical cliché. He dodges her non-stop advances by sleeping hanging upside down from the ceiling of the train car like a bat. They arrive in Lindworm, a city built around an ancient coliseum in a valley of steep mountains. Rose explains how the hero Olivier cut off the left arm of the demon Diablos here, and somewhere in the mountains lie ruins called the Sanctuary where the arm remains sealed. Rose spots a bookstore hosting a signing by the famous author Natsume. Sid realizes every title is a shameless rip-off of works from his past life and concludes another reincarnated person exists in this world. The author turns out to be Beta in disguise, the thieving, plagiarizing little snake. She hands him a book with mission details in ancient script, and Sid tells her he's disappointed. Rose asks about the ancient letters but cannot read them. Sid brushes her off, insisting the ancient alphabet is just cool. Separately, Alpha walks the dark corridors of the cathedral, investigating what Olivier really did at the sanctuary and what Archbishop Drake had been hiding. She finds the Archbishop dead, slumped in a pool of blood beside a stone statue, and wonders whether the cult would dispose of even a man of his rank. Guards discover the body and lock down the cathedral as Alpha slips into the darkness. From a rooftop, Sid eats dessert and watches chaos unfold across the city like the unhinged little gremlin that he is. He spots a fight in an alley and leaps down, finding Epsilon in combat. Afterward, she briefs him. Their target, Archbishop Drake, has already been killed by the cult's executioner. The Archbishop had gone into hiding, but Shadow Garden handled his henchmen and they're shifting to Plan B. Sid approves and tells her not to fail, then walks off into the streets, noting that Epsilon is a very proud woman. He can tell by the amount of slime she has stuffed into her bra, by the amount of slime she has piled onto herself.